The phone lit the dark bedroom like a siren, but no message came, and the quiet sliced clean. Maya said, "Lucas, where are you?" as if the room could answer. She refreshed the thread, chasing a ghost that once arrived at 7:02 every morning. The clock blinked rude certainty, and doubt crawled under her skin like frost. She remembered last Friday's playful promise, and the empty space burned hotter for it. Maya said, "It's fine. He's asleep," yet the lie snagged and frayed. Traffic hummed outside like a far ocean, and she measured breaths against the red glow. Allender pinged with a meeting and felt obscene. Maya said, "Call me when you wake," and the words tasted like metal. The sun edged the blinds, and she realized a habit had become her heartbeat, and today it didn't beat. Maya said, "It's fine, he'll text," but the words sounded like someone else's shoes on her floor. She dialed, and the ringtone stretched thin, then fell into voicemail like a cliff. The beep felt cruel, and she left no message, because silence sometimes begs louder. She paced the kitchen tiles, counting grout lines like hours lost to distance. Maya said, "If I call his work, I'm insane," and laughed, and the laugh cracked. She checked the time zone math 3 ways to absolve the void. A delivery truck coughed outside, and she jumped as if rescued. She opened his Instagram and closed it before the images could hurt. Maya said, "Text me when you wake," to the unsent box, and watch the cursor blink like a fading lighthouse. Memory crept in like a song you forgot you loved, and the first "good morning" rose bright. Maya said, "I kept that screenshot, pretending it was a talisman and not a chain." She remembered Lucas at the airport gate, smiling like a promise wrapped in sunlight. His voice had turned small distances into bridges, and bigger distances into prayers. Maya said, "We made rules, we kept time, like spells could hold back oceans." She wore those tiny rituals like armor, and every ding had been a heartbeat. Now, the quiet weighed heavier than luggage lost between cities. She scrolled the old thread, and joy glinted like glass in sand. Maya said, "Maybe love needs proof," and the thought frightened her because nothing arrived. The phone buzzed, and it was Jordan, not salvation but a handrail in a stairwell. Jordan said, "You didn't sleep, did you?" and the kindness cut deeper than blame. Maya said, "It's probably nothing," while arranging her face into something steady. Jordan said, "You're building your day on a maybe," and the words found a bruise. They talked about meetings and coffee, as if normal could be rebuilt like Lego. Maya said, "He's busy, not cruel," and the defense felt like wet paper. Jordan said, "Busy people still send a dot," and silence answered for Lucas. The call ended with a promise to check in later, and the room felt larger. Maya said, "I can wait," and her voice made it sound like waiting was a skill. Maya opened Lucas's profile, and the algorithm served a fresh photo like a dare. Elena's like sat beneath it, a neat spark beside her name, clean and devastating. Maya said, "I don't even know her," though the syllables tasted familiar and sharp. She studied captions for codes, as if punctuation could betray intention. Jordan's earlier words echoed, and the room tilted half a degree. Maya said, "He told me she's just a coworker," and the sentence shivered. The last "good morning" glowed higher in the thread, already a relic. Outside, sirens braided the air, and she wondered which emergency was hers. Maya said, "Ask first, bleed later," but her thumb had already started to type. Morning routines became rituals sharpened by absence, and Maya brewed coffee like a prayer. She timed the pour to the memory of his chime, then stared at foam that refused to form patterns. Maya said, 2 minutes late isn't a crime, and held her breath anyway. She set 3 alarms labeled with his name, and each one arrived without him. Emails stacked like bricks, and she built a wall she never entered. Maya said, "Focus on tasks," yet her cursor blinked like a lighthouse in fog. She rehearsed casual replies for a message that might appear. She left the apartment door ajar, as if a text needed airflow. Maya said, "Love is patience measured in tiny screens," and the thought soothed and stung. She scrolled old photos to warm, cold minutes. She refreshed the thread, then laid the phone face down, then face up again. They met at a delayed flight, and time paused long enough to introduce a life. Maya said, "You like paperbacks," and Lucas grinned like travel was a secret only they shared. The gate number changed, and they followed it together through fluorescent currents. Lucas said, "I'm terrible at goodbyes," and she laughed, not knowing how true it would become. Their first week was a parade of links, memes, and midnight stories. Maya said, "I'll save my mornings for you," and he answered with sunsets. Distance began like a dare, then settled like weather. He sent her city sounds, and she sent him thunder rolling past the river. Maya said, "We can outrun time zones," and he promised to try. They drew calendars with hearts around weekends. They believed routine could be a bridge made of light. Family dinners turned into tribunals disguised as kindness, and the soup cooled while questions warmed. Mom said, "You look tired," and the ladle paused like a gavel. Maya said, "I'm fine," and folded a napkin until it became a small boat. An aunt said, "Screens don't hold you when storms come," and the table hummed agreement. Dad said, "What is the plan?" and the plan shrank under the lamp's glare. Maya said, "We visit soon," and the room measured her certainty with quiet. The rice steamed like fog between islands. A cousin joked about catfish and caution, and laughter chipped a little paint. Maya said, "Love is not a scam," and heard her voice tremble. Plates clinked like clocks ticking too loudly. She smiled until her cheeks ached, then helped with dishes to hide. Jordan chose a corner cafe where the espresso bit and truths landed clean. Jordan said, "You're living between pings," and stirred sugar like a metronome. Maya said, "He shows up most days," and the word most felt thin. Jordan said, "You're rewriting absence into virtue," and the sentence held no malice. The street outside dragged gray clouds like tired dogs. Maya said, "He works late," and watched foam collapse into brown. Jordan said, "Busy people send dots," and the echo found last night's bruise. A couple laughed near the window, and it sounded like a foreign language. Maya said, "If I stop believing, what's left?" And silence offered a mirror. Jordan reached across and squeezed her hand, steady as a coastline. Maya said, "Okay, I'll ask for more," and the promise trembled but stood. Her phone thrummed at 12:11, and relief burst like a match in a cave. Lucas said, "Sorry, been busy," and the words arrived tidy and weightless. Maya said, "All good," though the river in her chest still ran fast. He added a sun emoji that glowed like a nightlight for children. Maya said, "I missed you," and watched the typing bubble pulse and vanish. He replied with a meeting excuse and a promise for later. She felt gratitude pour over suspicion and pool warm at her feet. Maya said, "Call tonight," and dared to plan dinner with sound. She placed the phone on the table like a truce flag. The room brightened, or maybe her eyes did. She breathed in a fuller breath, and the day moved forward by an inch. Her birthday came with store-bought candles and a playlist pretending not to ache. Maya said, "He'll call at 9," and lined up forks like soldiers who believed. 9 turned smug and walked past her without looking back. She refreshed the world until the world felt threadbare. Jordan said, "Cut the cake," and their friends cheered with love that couldn't land. Maya said, "Just a minute," and stared at the screen like a shoreline. The typing bubble rose, then died like a wave that forgot to break. She angled the phone to catch a better fate from the ceiling. A voicemail icon blinked into view, and Hope sprinted to greet it. Lucas said, "Happy tomorrow," and the Timazone excuse wore thin as tissue. Maya said, "It's still today here to no one," and sliced the cake anyway. Frosting smeared like a failed wish across the knife. The song ended, and the silence stayed to clean up. Morning found her gifts unopened on the coffee table like witnesses who refused to testify. Jordan said, "You deserve clocks that respect you," and poured coffee into a steadier cup. Maya said, "He meant well," and the defense sounded rehearsed and tired. Jordan said. Meaning isn't the same as showing, and the steam trembled between them. The apartment smelled like frosting and rain. A mix sweet enough to sting. Maya said, we've survived worse, and scrolled to prove it with old miracles. Jordan said, you're building temples to exceptions, and the words found soft ground. The kettle clicked off like a verdict she wanted to appeal. Maya said, I'll ask for a plan, and the sentence stood without crutches. Jordan nodded, and the nod felt like permission to breathe. A sparrow hopped on the fire escape, and judged no one. Maya said no more almosts, and her voice surprised her by holding. At lunch, the algorithm dealt another card, and called it harmless. Elena's photo with Lucas bloomed bright on the feed like a siren wearing perfume. Maya said, coworkers smile, but the intimacy in the frame pressed close. Captions mentioned deadlines and victory, while their shoulders shared an inside joke. Jordan said, zoom in on facts not fear, and slid her phone away. Maya said, facts can wound, and pinched to read the background like a map. His hoodie was the one she mailed last fall, and jealousy wrote its name in ink. She checked timestamps, and the hours overlapped the missed call. Maya said, coincidence exists, and the word flinched. Elena commented first with a confetti heart, and the heart felt heavy. An office plant leaned into their laughter like a witness. Maya said, ask him tonight, and saved her rage like a draft. Evening promised resolution, and delivered buffering. Maya said, are you free now? And the video call spun like a coin refusing to land. Lucas said, 1 sec, and his voice thinned under office air. She caught a smear of fluorescent light, then pixels dissolved into frost. Maya said, I need a plan, and heard herself sound older and clearer. He said, this week is chaos, and the word chaos knocked books from a shelf. The screen held his jawline, then surrendered to a wheel that spun without mercy. Maya said, I'm not a pause screen, and courage startled both of them. He said, can we talk later? And later broke under its own weight. The call dropped like a trapdoor, and left her rehearsing to an empty room. She stared at her reflection, and didn't blink first. Resolve gathered like a storm over warm water. When the room finally emptied of reasons, grief clocked in for the night shift. Maya said, just cry and finish, and lay on the floor where the rug could listen. The ceiling traced cracks like fault lines that had waited politely. She hugged a pillow the way airports hold departing planes, too tight and too late. Maya said, I'm not begging, and the tears interpreted that as a suggestion. The radiator clanked like distant applause for a play she didn't audition for. She pictured mornings without him, and felt space expand like an elevator drop. Maya said, tomorrow I ask directly, and the vow steadied her mouth. A siren combed the street, and left her breathing in even counts. The phone lay face down, pretending neutrality. She turned it over and met her own reflection. Maya said, no more rehearsals, and silence finally agreed. The text arrived from an unknown number like a match, slid across dry paper. Maya said, who is this? And the typing dots fluttered like a trapped moth. The reply read, he isn't who you think, and the floor shifted half an inch. She said, say your name. And her thumb left a crescent moon in her palm. A screenshot followed, Lucas with Elena at a rooftop bar, shoulders touching like a secret pact. Maya said, date and time, and the stranger sent metadata as neat as a knife. A caption joked about late nights, and her chest learned a new weight. She said, why tell me? And the answer came fast, because someone should. The room waited for her reaction, the way theaters wait for applause that will not come. Maya said, I need proof, even as proof iced the screen. Rain gathered on the glass, and made cities of the reflections. She saved the number under no one, and swallowed air that didn't warm. She called without planning, and plans were overrated tonight. Maya said, tell me the truth, and silence rummaged on the other end. Lucas said, what truth do you want? And the Dodge whistled like a cheap lock. She sent the screenshot, and the delivered checkmark felt judicial. Lucas said, it's a team thing, and the words clanked like props on a stage. She heard a voice in his background laughing in a familiar register. Maya said, "Is she there?" And the question steadied her spine. He said, "We're celebrating a release," but celebration sounded like alibi. A pause gathered like stormwater in a gutter. Maya said, "Did you promise me only me?" And the line hissed. Lucas said, "I care about you," and the verb ducked responsibility. The call ended without a goodbye, and the dial tone filed a report. She walked to the cafe like a witness finding the stand. Jordan said, "Show me everything," and braced the table with both hands. Maya said, "Maybe it's nothing," and the napkin buckled under her thumb. Jordan read the thread and exhaled like a medic. Jordan said, "This is not ambiguity," and laid the phone down with ceremony. Maya said, "If I accuse and he's innocent, I lose him," and the fear tasted of pennies. Jordan said, "If you don't ask, you lose yourself," and the room tilted into focus. People behind them rehearsed happiness with cups and laughter. Maya said, "I gave him permission to be vague," and the confession bruised. Jordan said, "Retire permission," and slid the phone back like a mirror. Maya nodded once, a small earthquake realigning plates. The plan became a sentence she could stand in. Knight drew out the ledger of sacrifices and asked her to read it aloud. Maya said, "I skipped Denver," and the missed promotion reappeared with fluorescent edges. She counted the wire transfers that kept him afloat when his startup wheezed. Maya said, "I sold the camera," and remembered the shutter she loved like a language. She plotted train tickets shaped like hope, then canceled them to suit his calendar. Maya said, "I learned his evenings, forgot mine," and the room nodded. She catalogued birthdays reshuffled, friends unread, hobbies boxed and stacked. Maya said, "I traded nouns for mabes," and the sentence rang clear. The receipts did not argue, they simply weighed more than she did. She stood before the mirror and named what remained. Maya said, "I will invoice the future with boundaries," and the promise held. The rain finally loosened, and the night exhaled. Morning arrived uninvited, and set the evidence in better light. Maya said good morning to the chat, and let the echo answer. The thread climbed past weeks of gentle crumbs and careful vanishing acts. She scrolled to the top and met the first sweetness like a museum piece. Maya said, "I taught myself to be grateful for scraps," and the truth didn't stagger. A new message arrived, a tidy apology built from tired bricks. Lucas said, "Busy week. You know I care," and care sounded like a placeholder. She typed, "Do you love me only?" and watched the cursor blink like a metronome of mercy. No reply came, only a scene mark that tightened the air. Maya said, "That is the answer." And it did not wobble. She set the phone down as if returning a borrowed relic. The room discovered silence that didn't feel empty, just honest. The call connected on the second try, and her breath reached him before her name. Maya said, "I need you to listen," and the plea balanced on a wire above traffic. Office air moved around his silence like a train that would not stop. Lucas said, "Can we keep this quick?" And the word quick bruised. She named the rooftop, the timestamp, the laugh that matched a tagged reel. Maya said, "I am not guessing, I am asking," and the steadiness surprised her. He sighed like a door closing 3 rooms away. Lucas said, "It's late here," and distance tried to do the talking. She let the quiet inventory their year of almosts. Maya said, "Do you love me only?" and the question stood without makeup. He asked for context, and context felt like fog over a cliff. She said, "Truth is context," and the line went thin enough to see through. He switched to gentle phrases that sounded manufactured for emergencies. Lucas said, "You know I care," and the verb landed light as dust. She waited for the noun that never followed. Maya said, "Care is not the same as only," and the sentence held. He tried deadlines, team dinners, and a joke about bad lighting. Maya said, "You wore the hoodie I mailed," and the proof stepped forward. He called it coincidence, then called it borrowed. She heard clinking glasses and a voice that could belong to the photo. Maya said, please don't make me narrator and detective, and her throat burned. He promised a proper talk on the weekend like a voucher for later. She counted the weekends already cashed and empty. Maya said, I need an answer now, and the now rang like metal. She asked for video, and he stalled long enough to prove her point. Maya said, turn it on, and the room practiced holding still. The screen brightened, and the office arrived in blocks and halos. Lucas said, bad connection, as a figure crossed behind him. Elena's laugh threaded through the speakers like a signature. Maya said, is she there? And truth gathered at the edge of the frame. He angled the camera to show nothing helpful, which showed everything. Elena said congrats again, and the word again carved a date into the air. Maya said, thank you for confirming, and her voice surprised her with mercy. The screen jittered, then sharpened on his eyes, already apologizing. She ended the call before apology could audition. The room stayed upright, and that felt like news. Anger arrived clean, like a scalpel sterilized by sleeplessness. Maya said, you do not get to ration me, and the room echoed consent. He called back, and she let it ring until resolve hardened. Lucas said, let me explain, and explanations lined up like actors in the wrong play. She listed the skipped trips, the money wired, the birthdays rescheduled. Maya said, I traded whole days for your maybes, and the tally clanged. He said, it wasn't like that, and the past raised a hand to disagree. She asked again for only last chance, no fog. Lucas said, I'm not ready to label it, and the label peeled off by itself. Maya said, then I'm done, and the words did not wobble. The call ended with the soft click of a door that would not reopen. Silence stood taller than both of them. After, the quiet did not feel empty, only exact. Maya said, breathe, and air obeyed on the second try. The rug remembered her shape, and held it gently. She opened the window, and let the night rinse the room. Jordan called once, then texted a heart that didn't demand a reply. Maya said, I kept waiting for proof he loved me, and the proof arrived in reverse. The thread of messages read like a museum of almosts. She selected the chat, and watched the delete option glow like a fire alarm. Maya said, not yet, and chose archive, Mercy's smaller cousin. She placed the phone in a drawer with ticket stubs and quieted gods. In the mirror, her face looked older and somehow truer. Maya said, no more altars to absence, and the future cracked open a centimeter. Morning found her inbox stacked like small storms, and routine put out buckets. Maya said one task at a time, and the cursor finally obeyed. Jordan's text arrived with a bagel emoji and permission to feel complicated. Maya said, I'm fine, and then no, I'm scraped but standing. She answered clients with clean sentences that did not leak sorrow. The kettle sang, and she let it finish the note without interruption. Maya said, grief can ride shotgun, not drive, and the day widened. She scheduled a walk at lunch as if scheduling sunlight. Jordan said, proud of you, and the praise landed like a steady hand on a shoulder. When the old thread tingled her memory, she breathed in 4 and out 6. Maya said, we heal by doing boring things well, and boredom felt holy. She crossed off a line item and felt a hinge loosen. The quiet was different now, not hostile, just roomier, as if the walls had stepped back. Her mother called with the careful voice used for fresh stitches. Asha said, come for dinner, and the invitation carried a soft net. Maya said, yes, and tasted how yes could be medicine. The apartment smelled of ginger and cardamom, and memory unknotted a little. Raj said, you don't have to explain, and the mercy surprised her ribs. A cousin told a silly story until laughter arrived on its own feet. Maya said, I'm learning to want my own life, and no one corrected her. Asha said, good, and pressed leftovers into a container, love in a practical shape. The family did not interrogate the missing man in the room. Maya said, thank you for quiet. And the thank you landed like a lantern. She walked home with warm food and warmer permission. The night air polished her edges without taking any more away. She opened a box labeled Someday, and found old prints that still knew her name. Maya said, "I miss the weight of a camera," and the ache felt clean, not jagged. The shutter on her phone could not imitate the devotion of glass. Jordan said, "Let's shoot the river at dawn," and the future tilted toward color. Maya sold 3 unused gadgets to fund a used prime lens. She watched tutorials like prayers that come with diagrams. Maya said, "Art is a afterward that happens during," and the paradox steadied her. She walked a block, framing fire escapes like metal vines. A kid on a scooter flashed by, and she caught motion that tasted like joy. Jordan said, "That's the eye I remember," and the compliment nested well. The city hummed in a key she could finally hear. Maya said, "I will build something that doesn't ghost me," and the promise held. Back home, she staged a quiet liberation with patient fingers. Maya said, "Keep what tells the truth," and opened the archive like a museum after hours. Screenshots that honored her joy stayed, but the ones kneeling to crumbs did not. Jordan said, "Delete is a scalpel, not a bomb," and she nodded. She saved a single photo to remember how hope once dressed. Maya said, "I forgive the girl who waited," and the room softened. She blocked the number not out of rage but to give time a clean hallway. The drawer of relics closed without argument. Maya said, "Boundary set," and the words clicked like a seatbelt. She made tea and let silence take the good chair. This was not erasing history, it was updating the map. The future felt less like fog and more like early blue. Dawn promised a truce, and then delivered a horizon worth trusting. Maya said, "Walk," and her feet consulted the pavement with interest. The river wore a thin mist like a thought still forming. Joggers passed and did not take anything from her. She lifted the camera and found lines that made sense without permission. Jordan said, "Breathe with the shutter," and the lesson worked. A gull carved the gray and left a silver sentence behind. Maya said, "I'm not waiting at a gate anymore," and the wind agreed. The city woke without checking her phone first. She framed a bridge and pressed the button, and the click said present. Jordan whooped, and the sound made a small cathedral over the path. Maya smiled, not as defense, but as fact. Weeks unfolded without ceremony, and her mornings learned new constellations. Maya said, "Coffee, keys, camera," and the list replaced old prayers. The river path recognized her stride like a password. She edited photos until colors kept promises. Jordan said, "You're glowing," and the compliment sat where hunger once lived. Maya said, "Work first, then wonder, and deadlines behave." A client approved a campaign and wired gratitude with zeros. She bought fresh flowers and didn't post them. Maya said, "I can be loved by a room with windows," and the light agreed. She rarely dreamed of airports anymore, only bridges. Jordan said, "Proud of the quiet you built, and the quiet held." Maya said, "I stayed, and I still arrived," and the paradox smiled. The phone stopped being a weather system and became a tool. On a Tuesday, a laugh sliced through the street with familiar angles. Maya said, "No way," but her feet had already turned. A couple shared a joke at a crosswalk, and time rehearsed old tricks. The man's profile carried Lucas's careless grace. The woman touched his sleeve and the world didn't break. Maya said, "Breathe like a person, not a past," and lungs complied. The signal changed, and the city flowed around her choice. She didn't chase, didn't shrink, didn't narrate them into villains. Jordan texted a picture of a dog in boots, and joy landed. Maya said, "I picked this sidewalk over that story," and kept walking. The city rewarded her with sunlight on glass. She adjusted her bag and felt her shoulders lower. The moment faded like steam and left nothing she needed. That night, the draft field opened like an old chapel. Maya said, "One last message to the person I used to be," and began. She wrote about patience misnamed as devotion. She wrote about how silence teaches, but never loves. Maya said, "Thank you for enduring, but we stop here," and paused. She deleted the greeting because he didn't need the ceremony. She deleted the apology because she didn't owe one. Jordan said, "Say it to yourself first," and the advice lit the keys. Maya said, "I choose mornings I can touch," and the cursor blinked yes. She saved the draft under a new folder called Boundaries. The room felt freshly painted without the fumes. She closed the laptop and her chest loosened like laces. The apartment learned her true weight and stopped creaking in protest. Maya said, "One box for what still fits," and opened the drawer of relics. She kept a ticket where the sky was heroic. She kept a photo where she looked like herself. Maya said, "The rest can rest," and pressed delete without ceremony. A breeze moved the curtain and applauded the decision. She set the phone face down and didn't listen for ghosts. Jordan said, "Dinner to celebrate the unhaunting," and she smiled. Maya said, "I'll meet you at 7," and the clock became an ally. She locked the door and walked into a hallway newly ordinary. The elevator arrived on time and carried only her. The world did not notice, and that felt merciful. Evening settled like a chord that finally knew its name. Ak. Maya said, "Table for 2," and the host wrote it without drama. She ordered pasta and a story that didn't require witnesses. Jordan said, "You're here," and they clinked water with a grin. Maya said, "I am," and the present didn't echo anyone else. Later, at home, the drawer stayed closed and peaceful. She stood by the window and let the city be a city. A notification nudged the lock screen, and she didn't lift it. Maya said, "Sleep," and the bed opened its arms without negotiations. The phone lay still, a tool among tools, quiet and unlit. She turned off the lamp, kept her promise to herself, and exhaled. And that was the last time his name ever lit up her phone.